House. Hi there, Gabrielle. Good to see you. As you mentioned, all eyes are on the White House and Capitol Hill, really waiting and watching to see whether or not they can come up with a deal. In the meantime, the president sounding off on the whole ordeal from the White House. What is President Trump saying about the status of negotiations?
Yeah, the president made it quite clear that he's looking for this partial shutdown to not last too long. Currently, he's going to engage in a working lunch right here at the White House. We actually just saw the vice president pull up not too long ago, so we anticipate that he'll actually be partaking in that working lunch as well. And of course, we know the Capitol Hill, they just convened the House and Senate at noon. And of course, we had Mitch McConnell stand up and say that they're creating this procedural agreement, some space for some negotiations. So we are on standby to see what exactly comes out of that. But of course, we've heard from House minority and Senate minority leaders, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer deem this partial shutdown as a Trump shutdown. And the president, of course, responding back saying this is as much a Democrat shutdown as it is anyone else's. So it's really interesting to see the tensions that are growing and whether or not they can come to an agreement, Rachel.
Absolutely, Gabrielle. And we just heard from Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, as you mentioned, calling on Democrats to reach an agreement, but also saying that Democrats, they're under a lot of pressure and feel compelled to disagree with the president. But switching gears now, how does this partial government shutdown affect operations? What's the status on the government operationally?
Yeah, well, the government, it's important to note that about 3/4 of the government they're already funded. They're not affected by this. Now, there's 9 agencies that are, and that includes DHS, HUD, DOJ, Interior, State Department. Obviously, there's some very important agencies here. But of course, it's really important to note that the essential staff, they are required, and the essential staff is deemed people who are a must, that are needed, are necessary to keep the government going. So the government still is in operation as much as it can be to serve the American people to some capacity. And of course, a lot of Democrats pointing, how could this happen, this shutdown happen during a time of Christmas? But I would note that Monday, Tuesday are federal holidays, so a lot of people are already out of town. It does buy Capitol Hill to make some decisions. And also, most employees are actually, when they're on furlough, they receive their pay as back pay. So it's interesting to see the dynamics here. But of course, this is something that President Trump, he campaigned for this. This is what we've seen last year, even when we saw those government shutdowns. They lasted about a day, the second one about 3 days. So he doesn't expect this to go too long. And of course, operations as they resumed, everything seemed to be just fine. And of course, just the ongoing conversation of the border wall. So we'll see. But as we've seen, there's a GoFundMe going around. So American citizens almost, putting their own hands and trying to fund the wall themselves, about $15 million going to that currently. So we'll see what happens later today, Rachel.
And it is all a waiting game as we wait and see what happens. As you mentioned, One America's Gabrielle Cuccia breaking it all down for us as we wait and see. And when negotiations come up, if lawmakers can come up and with an agreement with the president. As you mentioned, we heard from the president this morning saying he's working hard from the White House on talks, as well as Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell really calling on the Democrats for their help on this. And you mentioned those talks happening as we speak. And of course, we will continue to follow the shutdown and bring you the latest developments here on One American News as the president and leaders currently hold a working lunch during this time. All right. Thank you so much, Gabrielle, for that live report.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One American News on YouTube and call your cable provider and kindly demand